I think it's vile. I think I think that we're all created equal.
While celebrities are often known for their charisma, talent, and great personalities on and off the screen, we often admire them without realizing how they could be problematic in many ways by often overlooking them. With some, it might be unexpected, while with other celebrities, it's always been an open secret. The issue of racism within Hollywood among celebrities has been an important subject in recent years. While some actors or public figures have sought redemption by making an apology, others are still heavily criticized for their racism. Here's a list of 20 gone Hollywood celebrities who were blatantly racist and practiced discrimination towards a certain group of people while they were active. Number 1. John Wayne, 1960 through the 1970s. Actor John Wayne made several controversial racist remarks during his career, particularly against Native Americans and African Americans. In a 1971 interview with Playboy, he stated that he believed in segregation of African Americans and inequality among other non-white groups. He also made statements about good Indians and openly expressed admiration for the Ku Klux Klan. Despite being one of the most iconic stars in Hollywood, Wayne was an avid supporter of conservative ideologies and expressed openly racist views throughout his career.
Well, we have 20 million blacks on this continent.
Right.
It was necessary to extend rights to them that perhaps for the first 199 years were denied them in this free America.
I guess that they've had a pretty tough break, but not quite as bad as you and your do-gooder friends would have them believe. They live as well here as they live in any other country over that 199 years.
In a famous interview, Wayne stated that he believed in the segregation of races and publicly defended the treatment of Native Americans by saying that they were savages. He famously referred to African Americans in derogatory terms and supported the Ku Klux Klan, even admitting that he admired the group for its militant stance on preserving racial purity. His views were not limited to these two interviews. They also influenced the roles he portrayed in his films, where his characters also shared some wild racist beliefs. Despite his immense popularity, Wayne's views were controversial, and his legacy has since been scrutinized for their harmful nature. Number 2. Errol Flynn, 1940s. Errol Flynn was known for his charming persona, but also for holding racist views, particularly toward African Americans and other minority groups, an open supporter of segregation, and had been linked to racial prejudices, especially in his personal life. Errol Flynn, a flamboyant star from Hollywood's golden age, was tainted with several accusations of racism. Known for his charm and talent, Flynn held prejudiced views toward various minority groups, including African Americans and Native Americans. He supported the ideals of segregation and openly made racially charged remarks, both in private and in public. Moreover, Flynn's personal life was marked with accusations of racism, particularly when it came to his interactions with people of color. Though his public persona as a dashing leading man in films like The Adventures of Robin Hood remained stagnant for years, his problematic views have been increasingly recognized in modern times. Number 3. Clark Gable, 1930s through 1940s. Clark Gable, known for his iconic role in Gone with the Wind, was also reported to have made racist comments, particularly about African Americans. His views were more aligned with the racial attitudes of his time, including casual racism and supporting segregation. Although often referred as the King of Hollywood, is celebrated for his iconic role in Gone with the Wind, Gable's legacy is not without its scars, particularly in relation to his views on race. Gable was known to make derogatory remarks about African Americans, which were a reflection of his pervasive racial attitudes of the time. In Gone with the Wind, his portrayal of Rhett Butler was inextricably linked to the film's troubling depiction of the South, slavery, and race relations. Gable's personal views were not as outspoken as some of his contemporaries, but his casual racism and support of segregation were consistent with the era's racial prejudices.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Number 4. Charlton Heston, 1960 through 2000s. Charlton Heston, who was an advocate for the civil rights movement in the 1960s, later became associated with right-wing politics. There, he made several controversial comments about race and gun control. His actions and words in the latter part of his life led many to criticize him for encouraging racial segregation. Charlton Heston, a staunch conservative and outspoken advocate for the civil rights movement in the 1960s, became increasingly associated with right-wing politics as he grew older. This shift in his beliefs saw Heston making several controversial comments regarding race, particularly in the context of African Americans, and his support for the NRA. In the 1970s and 1980s, as he became a prominent figure in the conservative movement, he was criticized for aligning with causes that some viewed as racially divisive. His defense of gun rights and other controversial stances earned him a reputation for fostering racial division in the later part of his career. Despite his early involvement in civil rights activism, his later comments and actions led many to question his commitment to racial equality. Number 5. Marlon Brando, 1970s through 1980s. While Marlon Brando was a vocal supporter of civil rights during the early years, particularly when he rejected an Oscar for The Godfather in protest against Hollywood's treatment of Native Americans, he was known for making derogatory comments in private, especially toward other racial and ethnic groups. Marlon Brando was known for his groundbreaking performances in films like On the Waterfront and The Godfather, but he was a complex figure when it came to the topic of race. While Brando was a vocal advocate for civil rights in the 1960s, particularly during his famous Oscar boycott in protest of Hollywood's treatment of Native Americans, he was also criticized for making racially insensitive remarks in private. Brando's comments, particularly about African Americans and other minorities, often clashed with his public image as a progressive activist.
We just came from Bobby Hutton's funeral, and I'm not going to stand up here and make a speech because white people, you've been listening to white people for 400 years. They said they were going to do something. They haven't done a thing as far as I'm concerned in re-enfranchising the black man. It's up to the individual to do something, to force the government to give the black man a decent place to live, a decent place to bring his children up in. That could have been my son lying there. And I'm going to do as much as I can.
His efforts to stand against Hollywood's treatment of minority groups were significant, but his personal remarks, which have surfaced over the years, reveal a more complicated legacy. These contradictions have made Brando's relationship with race a subject. Tired of expensive, low-effort scriptwriters for your YouTube channel? Autoscripter.ai is the ultimate solution. Say goodbye to low-quality, poorly retention amateur scripts that fail to generate thousands of views for your channel. At a fraction of the cost, Autoscripter.ai helps your videos go viral. In just 3 steps, Autoscripter.ai creates a polished script tailored to your needs. Just input your title concept, select your tone and style. The intuitive interface makes editing and refining effortless, fast, smart, and trusted by hundreds of satisfied users who have already discovered the amazing tool. Start your free trial today and watch Autoscripter.ai transform your YouTube channel. Just click the link in the video description below now. Number 6. Dean Martin, 1960s. Dean Martin, part of the Rat Pack, was known for making racist jokes, particularly about African Americans, which were often used in his comedic routines and television appearances. Some of the humor was considered typical for the era, but was offensive by modern standards. Dean Martin, who was part of the legendary Rat Pack, was known for his wit and charm, but he also garnered attention for his use of racist humor throughout his career. His stand-up routines, television appearances, and film roles often included jokes that relied on racial stereotypes, particularly about African Americans and other minority groups. While some may argue that the racist humor was reflective of the era, it nevertheless contributed to the perpetuation of harmful racial views. His camaraderie with fellow Rat Pack members, including Sammy Davis Jr., an African American performer, has been seen as an example of friendship amidst racial tensions, but Martin's public jokes and comments continue to be criticized for their insensitivity. Number 7. Rodney Dangerfield, 1980s. Rodney Dangerfield, the famous actor known for his one-liners and stand-up comedy, was known for also making offensive racial jokes. His humor involved stereotypes about African Americans and other minorities, which he justified as part of his comedic style. Rodney Dangerfield, the comedian known for his self-deprecating humor and the catchphrase, "I don't get no respect," also indulged in humor that often crossed the line into racism. Dangerfield's stand-up comedy routines in the 1980s frequently included jokes that targeted racial and ethnic groups, using stereotypes as punchlines. Though the humor was intended to be lighthearted and self-mocking, it still often included offensive content regarding African Americans, Asians, and other minority groups. Dangerfield's willingness to use such stereotypes, which were a staple of his comedy, reflects the racial insensitivity of the time and the normalization of such jokes in mainstream entertainment. Number 8. Jimmy Durante, 1940s through 1960s. Jimmy Durante, a famous comedian and actor, used racial stereotypes in his performances, including demeaning African Americans and Jewish communities. His jokes reflected the casual racism of his time, which was often ignored or accepted in mainstream entertainment. Jimmy Durante, known for his distinctive voice and comedic style, often used racial stereotyping in his performances. He was notorious for incorporating demeaning jokes about African Americans, Jews, and other ethnic groups in both his personal life and public appearances. Durante's comedic approach, which was popular in the 1940s and 50s, was based on outdated and harmful stereotypes. While some of his material was intended for humor, it often inflected the highly ingrained racial prejudices of his era, perpetuating harmful ideas and reinforcing racial divisions in American culture. Number 9. Groucho Marx, 1930s through 1940s. Groucho Marx made several comments that were racially insensitive and offensive. While some of his humor was considered groundbreaking, his remarks about African Americans, Jews, and other ethnic groups were often filled with stereotypes. Groucho Marx, famous for his quick wit and humor, was not strange to making racially insensitive remarks throughout his career. Although Groucho Marx's comedic genius helped revolutionize comedy, his humor often relied on offensive racial stereotypes. His portrayals of African Americans, Jews, and other minorities in his films and comedy routines were frequently laced with bigoted jokes. While Marx's intent was likely comedic, the use of such stereotypes in his work, which included popular films like Duck Soup, has since been recognized as problematic. The Marx Brothers' style of humor was groundbreaking, but the racial attitudes embedded in their films have been re-evaluated in light of modern sensitivities. Number 10. Walt Disney, 1940s through 1950s. Walt Disney's views on race have been the subject of controversy, particularly because of the racial stereotypes in some of his early films, such as Song of the South, which was criticized for its portrayal of African Americans and the glorification of plantation life. Disney's company also faced allegations of promoting racial stereotypes in its products.
Who's there?
I'm the fuller brush man. I'm giving a free sample.
Thank you.
Now I got
Walt Disney, the founder of Disney Studios and creator of many beloved animated films, has faced criticism for his racist views and the racial stereotyping present in some of his work. One of the most controversial aspects of his legacy is the film Song of the South, which has been criticized for its romanticized portrayal of the South during the Reconstruction era and for its racial stereotypes, particularly in its depiction of African American characters. Disney's views on race were also evident in his hiring practices and the lack of African American representation in his films. His company was slow to cast non-white actors in lead roles, and Disney himself was known for harboring prejudices, which were reflective of the era's societal attitudes. Despite his significant contributions to animation and entertainment, Disney's legacy is complicated by these racial issues, which have led to ongoing debates about his views and their influence on his work. Number 11. Bing Crosby, 1950s. Bing Crosby was reported to have made racist comments, specifically remarks about African Americans. Known particularly for a feud with his son, some of his private comments were described as racist by those who were close to him. Bing Crosby, the beloved crooner, known for his smooth voice and roles in films like White Christmas, was known for his racist behavior and derogatory remarks towards African Americans. Crosby's legacy is marred by allegations that he held racist views, particularly towards African American performers with whom he worked.
In 1860, he became the 16th president.
He was known to make offhanded racist comments and, on occasion, displayed a lack of respect for African American colleagues. Notably, he had a tense relationship with African American entertainer Louis Armstrong, and the two reportedly had several clashes over Crosby's attitude. Despite his immense popularity in the entertainment industry, Crosby's personal prejudices have been criticized, especially considering his status as a public figure in an era of significant racial segregation. Number 12. Frank Sinatra, 1960 through 1970s. While Frank Sinatra was friends with many African American artists, including Sammy Davis Jr., he was known to make racist remarks and was associated with a lifestyle that included racial prejudices, particularly in his younger years. Frank Sinatra, one of the most influential entertainers of the 20th century, has a legacy that includes both significant achievements in music and film and a number of controversies surrounding his personal views on race. Sinatra was known for his smooth voice and iconic songs, but reportedly made several racially insensitive remarks throughout his career. He was known to use racial slurs and express prejudiced views about African Americans and other minority groups in private. Despite this, Sinatra's public persona evolved over time, particularly during the Civil Rights Movement, when he became an advocate for racial equality and was a vocal supporter of African American performers.
I really became conscious of segregation when I got involved in the entertainment business. I found that going through parts of the United States, traveling constantly and doing one-nighters with orchestras that were comprised of Negro musicians, there were a lot of problems. And not only the South, but in some quarters in the border states. and I began to resent it. I think it's vile. I think it's the most indecent way to believe. I think that we're all created equal. It's wrong. It's basically wrong.
His relationship with African American artists like Sammy Davis Jr. and Lena Horne, as well as his push to integrate Hollywood venues, helped to somewhat mitigate his past racist remarks. However, his early career, marked by racial prejudice and discriminatory behavior, remains a part of his complex legacy. Number 13, Louis B. Mayer, 1930s through 1950s. Louis B. Mayer, co-founder of MGM Studio, was a major figure in Hollywood who has been criticized for his racist practices, including the exclusion of African American actors from major roles. He was known for promoting a segregated studio culture during the height of his career. Louis B. Mayer, the co-founder of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer MGM, is often regarded as one of the most powerful figures in Hollywood during its golden age. However, Mayer's reputation has been tarnished by his overtly racist beliefs and practices. As a major studio head, he was known for his discriminatory attitude towards African Americans, Jewish people, and other minority groups. Mayer was notorious for perpetuating the industry's reliance on racial and ethnic stereotypes in films, often limiting roles for minority actors to those based on negative or demeaning representations. He also made no secret of his support for segregation and exclusion of African Americans from the higher echelons of Hollywood. Additionally, his hiring practices reflected a deep-seated bias, as he rarely hired African Americans for prominent roles, contributing to the systemic racism that defined much of early Hollywood. Number 14, Hedy Lamarr, 1940s. Hedy Lamarr, known for her beauty and intelligence, made several racist remarks regarding African Americans, often reflecting the racial tensions of her time. Her comments were particularly jarring in her interactions with those outside of her social circle. Hedy Lamarr, an Austrian-American actress and inventor, was remembered for her beauty and her pioneering work in wireless communication. However, her views on race have been the subject of criticism. Lamarr was reportedly known to hold some prejudiced views, particularly when it came to African Americans. She was accused of making racially insensitive comments and displaying a lack of respect for people of color, which was not unusual for many in her era. Lamarr's personal beliefs and her Hollywood career were influenced by the racial attitudes that were pervasive during the 1930s and 1940s. While she made significant contributions to the world of technology, Lamarr's legacy is complicated by these views, which are inconsistent with the progressive ideals that she championed in other aspects of her life. Despite her contributions to both cinema and technology, Lamarr's personal views on race remain a troubling aspect of her legacy. Number 15, Charlie Chaplin, 1920s through 1930s. While Charlie Chaplin is remembered as a revolutionary filmmaker, some of his films, like The Gold Rush, included offensive depictions of race. Chaplin himself was reportedly dismissive of certain ethnic groups and often used racial stereotypes in his silent comedies. Charlie Chaplin, one of the most iconic figures in the history of cinema, is often remembered for his groundbreaking contributions to film and his portrayal of the Tramp. Chaplin's personal views on race have been a subject of controversy. Throughout his career, Chaplin perpetuated racial stereotypes, particularly in the portrayal of African Americans and Jewish characters in his films. In some of his works, he used racial caricatures that reflected the widespread prejudices of the time. Chaplin's relationship with race also came into question due to his personal life. He was accused of having a dismissive attitude toward people of color and expressed discomfort around African Americans. However, he was also known for giving opportunities to black performers in his films, which was a rare practice in Hollywood at the time. Despite these actions, Chaplin's personal comments and certain film choices reflect the racial attitudes that were pervasive in early Hollywood and his own complex relationship with race. Number 16, Spencer Tracy, 1930s through 1960s. Spencer Tracy was known for being a perfectionist on set, but he also held prejudiced views about African Americans and other minorities.
What did you do that for?
Why not?
Can't pay you back.
That's all right. Glad to help you out. Lose your job?
Yeah, how did you know?
Saw you when you started to work this afternoon. Didn't think you'd stay there long.
His relationship with Katharine Hepburn was often overshadowed by his struggles with alcoholism and racism. Spencer Tracy, one of the most respected actors of his time, known for his roles in films such as Guess Who's Coming to Dinner and Judgment at Nuremberg, has some controversial aspects regarding race. Tracy, despite being an advocate for racial equality in his films, held personal prejudices that were revealed through his private behavior. He was known for his interactions with African Americans and other minorities that sometimes reflected the racial attitude behavior era. Tracy had a close relationship with the African American actor Sidney Poitier, especially during the filming of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, where the two became friends. However, his comments about race and his private beliefs indicated that he was not entirely free of the prejudices of his time. Tracy's complex legacy is further complicated by his personal life, where he maintained a long-term affair with Katharine Hepburn, and the two actors had differing attitudes about race and social issues. Though Tracy's film roles helped challenge some racial stereotypes, his personal prejudices remain part of his legacy. Number 17, Orson Welles, 1940s through 1970s. Orson Welles, one of cinema's most influential directors, made racist comments throughout his career. Some of his private remarks about African Americans and other racial groups have been documented and criticized for their offensive content. Orson Welles, a genius director and actor known for masterpieces like Citizen Kane, has been involved in behavior where his views on race have been questioned. Welles, despite his progressive views, in many ways, had a somewhat problematic approach to race relations. In some of his films, he utilized racial stereotypes, and in interviews, Welles made racially insensitive comments about African Americans, which were not uncommon in Hollywood during his time. Despite his progress in politics, his complicated views on race have led many to view him as a product of his time, with his personal attitudes and some of his works reflecting the pervasive racism in the industry. His interactions with African American colleagues and his role in perpetuating racial stereotypes in cinema have been subjects of ongoing discussion. Number 18, Robert Mitchum, 1940s through 1970s. Robert Mitchum was notorious for his past remarks and actions that displayed a strong sense of racial prejudice. He was involved in several incidences of racist behavior, including a notorious arrest in which he was charged with marijuana possession alongside his use of racial slurs. Robert Mitchum, known for his tough guy roles in films like Out of the Past and The Night of the Hunter, was often regarded as one of Hollywood's quintessential bad boys. Mitchum's personal views on race were highly controversial, and his legacy is marred by incidences that reflect the racist attitudes of his time. In the 1940s, Mitchum was arrested for marijuana possession, and during his time in jail was reported to have made racist comments. His involvement in the 1947 film The Longest Day, which dealt with the D-Day invasion of Normandy, also revealed Mitchum's insensitivity to racial issues. In his personal life, Mitchum was known to express derogatory views about African Americans and other minority groups. While his on-screen roles often depicted him as a hero or anti-hero, his private comments and actions reflected the racial prejudices that were pervasive in Hollywood at the time. Number 19, Alfred Hitchcock, 1940s through 1960s. Alfred Hitchcock's racism was well documented through his treatment of actresses, particularly Tippi Hedren.
Tippi Hedren is finally opening up about the abuse she says she suffered at the hands of Alfred Hitchcock, the legendary director who made her a star and then ruined her career because she refused to sleep with him.
It is the worst thing to be the object of someone's obsession if you're not interested. It became unbearable.
Hitchcock was said to have been prejudiced against certain ethnic groups, which was apparent in his personal and professional behavior. Alfred Hitchcock, the master of suspense known for films like Psycho, Rear Window, and North by Northwest, is widely regarded as one of the most influential filmmakers in history. However, Hitchcock's treatment of actors, particularly women and people of color, has been scrutinized in light of modern understandings of race and gender. Hitchcock was known for his controlling and often manipulative behavior on set, and his relationships with his actors were sometimes marked by mistreatment and harassment. When it came to racial issues, Hitchcock was not immune to the biases of his time. His films, particularly in the 1940s and 1950s, often featured stereotypical portrayals of African Americans and other minority groups. In his personal life, Hitchcock did not seem to challenge the racial prejudices that were common in Hollywood. Though he occasionally worked with minority actors, his films rarely offered substantial roles to people of color, and the characters who did appear often embodied negative or stereotypical traits. Hitchcock's complicated relationship with race and gender, coupled with his notorious treatment of actresses like Tippi Hedren, has led to a re-evaluation of his legacy.
We all enjoy, shall we say, putting our toe in the cold water of fear.
Number 20, Gary Cooper, 1930s through 1950s. Gary Cooper was known for holding racially prejudiced views, particularly about African Americans. His personal opinions were often reflected in the roles he took and in his interactions with colleagues during his career. Gary Cooper, an iconic actor known for his roles in films like High Noon and Sergeant York, was a beloved figure in Hollywood. However, Cooper's views on race were problematic, reflecting the prejudices of his era. While he was never as openly hostile toward African Americans as some of his peers, Cooper's personal beliefs about race were still influenced by the racial segregation of his time. His interactions with African American actors were often characterized by a lack of respect, and he was known to have participated in the racial exclusion that marked Hollywood's golden age. Cooper's film roles, particularly in westerns, rarely included complex or sympathetic portrayals of Native Americans or African Americans, often relegating them to stereotypical roles. Despite being lauded for his performances and enduring popularity, his views and the roles he chose were reflective of the limited opportunities for minorities in Hollywood at the time. Like many of his contemporaries, Cooper's legacy is complicated by the racial biases that were pervasive in the film industry. Many celebrities were products of their time, with racist views shaped by society and upbringing. Blatant racism was once tolerated in Hollywood and American society. While these figures are remembered for their contributions, their views highlight how deeply racism was ingrained in the industry and still is. Though they may be gone, racism persists through insensitive jokes, negative portrayals, and stereotypes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more untold stories from behind the silver screen. See you in the next video.